Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to talk about Fair Bretonnia, a faction which was free. Yep, interestingly enough, we have had a full race pack come out for free, not a single cent, and it's not too bad. They've even had another FLC Legendary Lord join them, and a small rework which kind of fixed up a bunch of problems. They are by no means perfect at the moment. I do believe that the Bretonnians could use a dedicated patch one day. However, they are still very fun to use, and if you're running off that old world hype like I am, you're likely playing Bretonnia a fair bit. Now, obviously, there's a lot of mods that add flavor to different races and factions, so you can have a different or maybe enhanced campaign. So with this video, what I want to do is talk about the mods that I deem fairly essential to play Bretonnia if you want something a little bit more added to it, or maybe just some quality of life fixes, some characters, units, and just in general, a few mods that make or break the faction for me. The mods can all be found in the description below as a collection, since I finally figured out how to use them. It took a while, but yeah, let's begin. Now the first mod that we're going to talk about is Lily's Bretonnia Overhaul Definitive Edition. Lily is most likely, not even most likely, she is the most passionate Bretonnia fan that I've ever met, and it's very obvious with her mods. This mod does a lot of stuff. We're not going to talk about everything. There's a little bit of an image there, so you can see pretty much the cliff notes. But one thing it does is it adds in a few new buildings, like for example, being able to increase your peasantry, meaning that you'll be able to field more on the battlefield even if you don't have so many settlements, and also increase the income that you get from all buildings. As Bretonnia does suffer on it, the only way that you'll be able to field more and more armies is if you become an expansionist, but the faction as a whole does kind of suffer. You do need to take your time, so this does make it a little bit better for you. There's also a bunch of new technologies which will allow you to boost up certain units, especially stuff that's been added through this mod, as there's a few units there, and just in general allow you to get a little bit stronger, because you do suffer. Bretonnia isn't really the strongest faction in lore, mostly because you're focusing very heavily on cavalry, which can be countered. A few of the techs also help you up with administration with some extra growth, which is quite needed. You'll get a bunch more chivalry too, which again, bonuses that you do get from Bretonnia are very much needed when you start getting dogpiled. Early on, you'll start to see Be'lakor, Musalon, you'll also have Heinrich, and sometimes, the Norskin factions will come in. Not only that, but Grom, and sometimes the Wood Elves can be a problem, so these will help you make it less of a slog sometimes. You also do end up with a bunch of new units with this mod, which is the Royal Men-at-Arms. So they are varied in terms of weaponry. You'll be able to get them with halberds, hammers, spears, shields, which is very, very needed, some bows. Now, they're not supposed to be amazing. They're just a little bit of a step up from your basic Men-at-Arms. And the idea is just to give you a little bit of a extra tier unit there, which does help. Believe me, Bretonnia does suffer. This isn't the fault of Creative Assembly, by the way. It's just how the Bretonnian Army book was based on, as when we were playing 8th edition, which is what this game is based on, we were still using the 6th edition Bretonnian Army book. So yeah, this gives you a bit more to play around with and allows you to have a little bit more expansion in your terms of playstyle. If you want more men-at-arms, you have them, and they can be a little bit stronger to kind of really give you that extra punch. This next mod is smaller, and it's again by Lily, Lily's Bretonnia Overhaul Unit Pack Submod, and it just adds in a few new units, which is going to be quite nice for your campaign. Knights of the Realm with hand weapons, which is quite useful. They're not going to be as great for charging, but they're going to be very good to do damage against some basic units. You do also have some men-at-arms with longbows, again, quite useful as a bit of an upgrade, and some extra field trebuchets, one with fire attacks and the other one with cow projectiles, which means poison attacks. It's a smaller mod, but it adds in a little bit more, which is quite needed. Plus the cow projectiles, it just takes you back to Stronghold Crusader, doesn't it? Now, when it comes to Lily, there's a lot of Bretonnia mods. We're not going to talk about any more that she's got, because believe me, we'd be here for hours and hours. But I would highly suggest checking out her mod collection, because there's a lot of stuff for Bretonnia. This next mod is called Agent Hero Forever, the Green Knight, and it is by Mixu. I have probably butchered your name, I'm very sorry, dude. But yeah, a very simple yet very efficient mod. What this does is it makes the Green Knight a permanent legendary hero. Keep in mind, there's one thing that you need to know here. Don't disband him, because if not, he will just disappear for good. But if you're not disbanding him, which why would you do it? It's a very strong hero. The Green Knight will have access to a proper skill line, so you'll actually be able to, build him up like a proper hero, have him be a lot more useful, especially when it comes to later game, and he'll just be very, very powerful. You'll also have the vows, so you'll be able to boost him up quite heavily there too. In general, it's just makes him a lot better. This is something that should be in vanilla. That's just my personal opinion. And I understand what Creative Assembly have done with the vanilla implementation, where, he'll pop up for a certain number of turns and disappear and so on. But Bretonnia does lack from this. It's not like you'll be able to get him very early on anyway, because you'll need to try and boost up getting chivalry as fast as possible, and that becomes a problem, especially as you're trying to expand and getting into loads of combat. Sometimes you might have to raid, sometimes you'll have to sack a settlement, so you won't be getting chivalry that quickly, but it does very much help your campaign, especially when player bias kicks in. You want a legendary hero with you at all times to be able to do some damage out there. It's also the Green Knight. Yeah, but he's super cool, right? Alright, we're going to talk about two mods here. So the first one is the Dukes of Bretonnia Beta by Ubermorgan, and the next one is Mixu's Legendary Lords by Mixu, which does affect a bunch of other races and factions too, by the way. But here you'll be getting a bunch of changes to the generic factions for Bretonnia, and basically allowing you to have a bunch new Legendary Lords with your own unique faction effects, lord effects. You'll also have them looking very, very stylized. It's one of these things which is quite important because Bretonnia, unfortunately, is very, very small, and the dukedoms aren't properly represented here. It does feel a lot bigger, obviously, when you play with the Old World mod, but if you're playing in Immortal Empires or Immortal Empires Expanded, you feel the limitations. It's very, very obvious. But seeing a bunch more characters makes Bretonnia feel more alive, especially as, let's be honest here, you have your favorite dukedom. If you're a Bretonnia fan, it's maybe not Couronne, maybe it's not Carcassonne. There's a lot of people who are big fans of Brigand, or I don't know, maybe they just want to play as Bowmen Beastslayer. There's so many different characters here. They're all fairly unique, and it allows you to have a different variety. Pair this up with Recruit Defeated Legendary Lords, just in case they get killed off before you can confederate them, and you've got a bunch of legendary characters to play with, all of them looking really, really cool. I think this is a big thing. Now, obviously, a lot of these guys are starting off in Bretonnia, the grand majority of them are, so you'll be confederating them very early on if they don't get killed off. You'll have so many legendary lords that your armies will be quite unique, and it just adds to a lot more feeling. It's something that I feel is one of these really important mods when it comes to a race that doesn't have a lot of legendary lords to begin with. Now for a mod that's going to allow you to explore a different part of Bretonnia. This is Bertrand the Brigand and the Bowmen of Bergerac. So, yeah, there is a Robin Hood character in Warhammer Fantasy lore. It's been there for a while, and he does have his band of merry men. By the way, you can also turn this into its own unique faction. In the mod page at the bottom there is another mod which allows him to have a unique faction, but if not, you can recruit him with any of the Bretonnian legendary lords, even with the modded ones too. It will give you Bertrand, it will give you access to 2 new legendary heroes, so, Little John and so on. You don't have to keep them together, you can have them spread out and just have a few different armies. This also does give you a new lord choice and a hero choice, more focus on range combat, just in case you want more of the peasantry out there, which is always quite good. You'll get access to a bunch of new units too, which, again, brigands, a very lesser part of Warhammer Fantasy lore, which, was mentioned a few times and then disappeared. It's kind of coming back now thanks to Warhammer the Old World, but even then it's still not very heavily expanded. The idea here is if you want some brigands to boost up your forces, or if you want some themed armies for a little bit of roleplay, you've got them here, and it adds in very nicely to the missing Bretonnian stuff. It's a faction, once again, that didn't really get too much attention, so you'll be able to get yourself some crossbows, some skirmishing archers with a bit more long range. It's a bit of a shame that peasant archers don't really shoot as long as they normally do on the tabletop nowadays, because peasant archers, by the way, 30-inch range, absolutely amazing. You've got buildings that are associated with this stuff too, and again, you can have another mod which is in the description of this mod page. It gives you a brand new faction if you just want to use the brigands and you want to have a roleplay aspect of that, which again is great. More options is always best. I think that's really, really important for this game. I'm a very, very big fan of this, and I'm very much going to be lifting some of these designs for some of my mini paint schemes, because I do want to do a Bretonnian brigand force, and I think that some of these interpretations are actually really good. Lastly, and I know you guys might be saying, oh really, a map mod? But hear me out. This is GCCM Beta and also the campaign map replacer by FSF Ranger. These are just really important because Bretonnia, I honestly think that the biggest issue with Bretonnia when it comes to Warhammer 3 is that they don't have a selection of settlements. The maps are the same. There's like 2 for major and 2 for minor. Right now there's only a few additions when it comes to major settlements, but it's very noticeable when you're either fighting to take over Bretonnia from the undead or the orcs or Bellicor or whatever, or you're defending it when you get dogpiled. You're going to be fighting a lot of the same battle over and over. It's really frustrating that the maps are very much the same, and this is just a few of the major settlements within Bretonnia, but it does actually break up the monotony again, which is really, really important to keep you immersed into this campaign. The 2 map mods are essential. The more that gets added to them, it just makes the campaign so much better, believe me. But for Bretonnia, it's so incredibly noticeable that I think that once you start to see these maps, and this is just a small look at them, you're going to see how visually impressive they are. A lot of these maps are obviously from Warhammer 2 because of GCCM, but updated with the new systems to make it in line with Warhammer 3. It is so good. It is literally so good. And I know some of you might say, well, there's a bit of an issue when some units get stuck and they just don't react as well. I would argue that that's more a Warhammer 3 issue than it is these custom maps, because I've seen it happen on the vanilla maps before where armies just refuse to move. Hopefully that gets fixed up when we eventually get the siege fixes that were promised for Shadows of Change but still haven't come here. I guess that they're really trying to find a proper fix for all that type of stuff, so it's better to wait. I'd rather wait a while and get something that works than have something pushed out super quickly and then just causes more problems, right? But yeah, these are the mods that I recommend for Bretonnia. There's likely a lot more. Like I said, if you search up all the mods that Lily has posted for Bretonnia, you could be here for years and have so much to play around with. I wanted to talk about a bunch of different mods because I feel like that's actually quite important and we could see quite a lot coming in. I feel like this does help Bretonnia a lot. Check it out with the collection in the description below. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And yeah, I've got something on the works. I've got the army almost ready for that painting challenge. That's going to be pretty interesting if you're interested in tabletop stuff. You're going to see my descent into madness. So yeah, keep your eyes posted for that. See you all again very soon, guys, and have a great day.